We get to talk with the newest member of the Missouri State Ice Bears, the prestigious hockey club for the Missouri State University, and that is Cliff Cook, who joins Jeremy Law on his staff. Coach Cook, how are you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Pretty good. You know, I know the head coach, Jeremy Law, is tuned in, and I think the biggest question that we should ask Jeremy Law is maybe he should do a quick Google search of who Wally Pipp is. You don't want to be looking over your shoulder now. I mean, Coach Cook, you could be running the show here very shortly.
I don't know about that.
I'm just kidding. He sent me a text. He goes, "You better grease my tires." And knowing Jeremy in the fashion that I do, he's a good man. You guys have got you've worked together before, huh?
Yeah, we've known each other nearly 15 years now. And about 10 years ago, I joined his coaching staff down in Texas in the Western States Hockey League with the Brahmas down there, and worked together for a couple of years before I moved out to coach New Mexico Renegades, which, ironically enough, eventually became the Springfield Express.
And then your gig with Missoula. I mean, it's hard to pull the Missoula out of a man. That's an impressive portion of the country up there. It's
spectacular. I loved my 2 years up there. Amazing people, amazing country. I had a lot of fun up there, but I miss those guys a lot and wish them well. Be rooting for them from down here, but I had big plans for my personal future, which involved coming down here, and Jeremy kind of opened a door for me to make that happen.
Funny how the coaching world works. It's such a small fraternity. You think about all these teams with all these names, and then you realize that it's a pretty small circle of people that you trust and ultimately probably someday find yourself working with, as you are now with Coach Jeremy Law.
Yeah, we complement each other very well. We figured that out pretty quick 10 years ago, not just because we're close friends. He's aside from the hockey part of things, he's one of my best friends in the world, and more like a brother than anything. Our families are close. But as far as the hockey side of things goes, we do complement each other. He's the more outgoing, personable guy. I'm the kind of behind the scenes, getting things done when it comes to that, and it creates a really nice relationship, and I would hope benefits the players as much as anything.
So you're from Dallas?
Born and raised in Carrollton, Carrollton, Texas.
It's a good portion of the world too.
Not too bad. Yeah, not too bad. I will admit I'm glad to be out of that level of heat this time of year. I prefer the colder climates, but I love getting down there to visit friends and family for sure.
I worked in Frisco in 2015, and that ballpark where the Rough Riders play was right across the street from where the Dallas Stars, their AHL team. What's their name? I can't remember what their AAA team is right across the street, but there was
the Rough Riders.
Yes, yeah. But there was a parking lot right there and a garage that was connected to where the hockey team played. And, I mean, one day there was, like, a guy who had gone into a jewelry store in this big heist, and there was a chase. And I happened to park in the parking lot that night. And, I mean, there was, like, a standoff and snipers on top of buildings. We were, like, locked in, and it was all happening right there. We had helicopters overhead. It was like, man, we're right in the scene. And when I walked into the office, they were like, "It was you, wasn't it?" And I was like, "No, I had nothing to do with it. I just happened to be – I saw the car skirt by me, but I wasn't the guy who was the jewelry heist." But – yeah, good old Dallas.
Well, I figure I should get this out of the way since I heard you guys talking Cardinals baseball earlier and this and that. I am, in fact, a diehard Texas Rangers fan. I will admittedly say that amongst all you Cardinals fans and hang my head in shame.
They never truly appreciated in Texas my love for the Cardinals. In fact, I sort of had to hide any.
I can't imagine.
But you know what? It's not our fault Nelson Cruz dropped the ball in right field. I mean, frankly, he should have caught the ball, and then you guys are world champions.
Yeah.
So you've been working in hockey for, more than 40 years? I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I started playing. I got on the ice when I was just 3 years old down in Texas. So that was 1979. My family had been involved in hockey even before I was born. So, it's been a lifelong, kind of endeavor of mine, and been in coaching now for, if I do the numbers right, I'm getting old. I think this is year 21 of coaching. So it's become, well, not become, it really is my passion and what I enjoy doing.
Did your dad play or mom or, who put you on skates?
No, well, back then in Dallas, we had the Dallas Blackhawks, old farm club, and we just became enamored with it. I had an older brother that played, and I kind of got into it because of him. So, and it just took off from there. I left for, obviously we didn't have much hockey in Texas back then, so I left for prep school after my sophomore year of high school. Went up to Lake Placid, New York, and finished off at Northwood School up there, and just kind of taken off since then.
How impressed have you been with Jeremy's kind of takeover of the Missouri State program and what he's been able to do in such a short span here?
As someone that's known him as long as I have, I don't want to demean him by saying I'm not impressed, only because I fully expect this of him. He's super talented. I was not surprised at all at the success he had so quickly. Am I impressed by his abilities? Absolutely. But at the same time, I just come to expect it from a guy as talented a hockey coach as he is.
I've seen him interact with his players. There's just there's a trust, there's a friendship. I mean, he's more than just, coach. There's an ultimate respect from player-coach. That's unique, and I think hockey brings that element out more so than other sports.
Yeah, and he draws a good balance between, as a coach, you want to be close with your guys, but you're not their best friends because you still have to be able to lay down the law when necessary, but you also care for these guys and you want the best for them. And so there's a balance between being a friend and being their coach and mentor. And once they're done playing for you and you move on in the future, then you can do the friendship thing. I have that with my old high school coach from up in New York. I was scared to death of him when I played for him, and now he's a very close and dear friend and one of my biggest mentors still to this day, 25 years later. So it's finding that balance between the two.
And when I say that, I mean identifying leaders on the team to establish accountability amongst the players, and that's the trust factor that a coach ultimately has to have with his group.
Absolutely. Jeremy and I just this morning, before he headed out, were just talking about that very thing. And a player we coached together 10 years ago who was one of the greatest captains we've ever come across for a hockey team, and how he was able to create just what you're talking about, that accountability from a peer aspect with his players, which gained the respect of his peers and in turn the respect of the staff and vice versa.
So the schedule just came out. I mean, I know there's a lot. Everything's fluid right now with the pandemic and what could potentially happen. But the schedule is out, and it features another slate of impressive games against one of the better conferences in the WCHL.
Yeah, I would say strength of schedule-wise, there's gonna be very few teams that can compete with our strength of schedule, and you have to sit there and ask yourself, is that a good thing or a bad thing? But when you consider most of those are against conference opponents, it just shows, like you said, the depth of this conference and how impressive the WCHL as a whole really is, and especially now with adding the new teams out west with Grand Canyon University, UNLV, and University of Utah. I mean, those UNLV in particular, but really Grand Canyon and Utah, both quality programs. So we just keep building every year.
In your previous stops, have you? What's the chatter about Missouri State hockey? I mean, it seems to be growing in its reputation.
Guys want to play here. I coached juniors for many years now, and this has become one of those destinations, as you said, that the guys want to come play here. Not just because of the success, but because of Jeremy and the reputation he's built. I'm looking forward. Some of my guys from last year up in Missoula are going back for one more year of juniors, and then I'm hoping to convince them to come on down here with me, because it's a great opportunity for a young hockey player to get a great education and play some quality hockey as well.
How impressed are you with the area talent? I mean, and that can stretch up into St. Louis. I mean, obviously St. Louis youth hockey is pretty darn good. I would imagine a recruiting hotbed for you guys, but it's beginning to even grow now here in Springfield. And, I was talking to somebody whose 3 kids play, and you look at the fact that Springfield's got 2 big hospitals, and you constantly have people who are moving to town from other areas that maybe had hockey or sheets of ice there. And the fact that Springfield's got a big 2 sheets of ice, the developmental side, and getting people to really buy into the sport from a grassroots level, I think you see a lot of people in this community that are making it grow.
Absolutely, and I can tell you from my experience growing up in Texas, we were in Missouri a lot playing hockey back then, and even back then, much like in Texas, hockey was quality, and people just around the country just didn't realize the quality of hockey that was coming out from this part of the world. And much like where I'm from here in Missouri, that's just continued to grow and grow. And you see, guys, not just making it to the ACHA level. You see NCAA players, you see pro players, and just looking at our roster right now, with new guys coming in this year, we've got as many as 16 guys from Missouri alone on this roster, and that's quite impressive. I mean, it's obviously a convenience thing having players from the area, but it's also just goes to show with as talented a roster we have and that many guys from the Missouri area, it's super impressive, the level of hockey.
As far as off-season scheduling, I mean, what do you guys know that you can and can't do right now? How stiff are the regulations?
Well, we're continuing to follow along with the guidelines the city of Springfield has put in with their phase program, and we are moving forward with our mini camp July 11th and 12th, and obviously with some regulations there. It's not going to hinder the amount of players we would normally have on the ice for those kind of camps with the scrimmages and stuff, thankfully. But we are going to be making sure and check temperatures of people coming in. The staff will all be wearing masks and things like that. Most likely we will spread the players out in the locker rooms and use more locker rooms than we normally would. So we're just trying to follow as best we can all the guidelines in place and to make it as safe for everybody else. But, as cautious as I am generally as a person, I think we're all excited to just see some live hockey again. But at the same time, we don't want to put anybody at any unnecessary risk either.
Two more for you. Cliff Cook, our guest here on JOCK 98.7, assistant coach with the Missouri State Ice Bears. You said you're a Texas Rangers fan. I would assume that would make you a Dallas Stars fan.
Well, strangely enough, the only professional sports team I follow hardcore is the Rangers. As far as the NHL goes, I just enjoy the league as a whole and like individual players. When the Stars do well, it's great. My family has a hockey shop in Dallas, so when hockey's doing well, it's good for business. But I don't root against them. Let's put it that way. Same with the Cowboys. I actually worked for the Cowboys for a few years originally as an intern and then a paid intern, and so I enjoy football, and it's good when the Cowboys are winning. But my thing, when I'm not coaching, when I'm not on the ice, and I need a break, the thing I'm watching is going to be my Rangers.
Well, I was going to apologize again on behalf of St. Louis because that double overtime thriller where Patty Maroon threw one on the back shoulder.
I predicted that loss.
Oh man, I went to the same high school as Ben Bishop, so it was bittersweet. Okay. But I mean, you gotta. I mean, he was wearing green.
That was an impressive Blues team.
Oh, great run, wasn't it?
Big, mean, tough, and talented. Can't beat that.
No, I went back on June 12th, which was the anniversary of Game 7, and just rewatched that entire game. And, oh, my gosh, I mean, the Blues, they were just a tremendous hockey team. There's no and if or buts about it. They
was
were
a fun
everything.
Group to watch.
Last thing for you, Cliff. I'm curious, how would you defend maybe some of the criticism that the sport has endured over the last week after former NHL player Daniel Carcillo kind of came out with a lawsuit with some pretty damning allegations against his junior teams. And, I mean, some of the stuff in there ranges from hazing to downright assault to some really nasty things in the sport of hockey. And for a guy who's been involved with the sport for 40 years, I would imagine that players really don't appreciate exactly what was said there, because as a sport and as a whole, there's no way that represents what the hockey game stands for.
Yeah, and I admittedly haven't seen his comments, but I will say this, even when I was a player, I felt this way, and as a coach, and I hope I'm not in the minority, but, there is no excuse, no room for hazing of any kind, and I obviously I've witnessed it, having, played for so many years and been around it, but, I was always one to speak up when things like that were happening. I don't think it creates these team bonds that people try to use as an excuse for doing things like that. I think it's quite the opposite. But like I said, maybe I am in the minority. I think players that are arguing about whatever he said, and I will go look it up. But anybody that wants to make any excuses for hazing or anything like that is kind of living in the dark ages, in my opinion. I don't think it's a necessity at all. There's much better ways of team bonding and things like that. And I think you're right. It doesn't represent all of junior hockey or pro hockey, juniors in particular, because I think that's where the main reputation comes from and things like that. But unfortunately, I think while it doesn't represent all of it, sadly, it does represent a pretty decent majority still to this day. Now, USA Hockey, Hockey Canada, organizations like that have done a phenomenal job of putting an end to a lot of it, but it hasn't completely stopped. And, it's one of those things, maybe it never will completely stop, but if we can get it to a point to where, it's a strong minority and it's just a handful of groups here and there, that can be dealt with much easier than what it has been in the past.
Yeah, that's well said. The only hazing that should be acceptable is when it's against Jeremy Law. Maybe you pulled his seat out as he goes down to take a seat. You just rip that right underneath him.
I'm staying in his house right now, and I've got the house myself this weekend, so there might be some hazing involved with his bedroom.
Coach,
sorry, Jeremy, if you're listening. You didn't hear that.
Lawsy, we love you, bud. Listen, Coach, we look forward to meeting you in person, and congratulations on joining the Ice Bears. And it draws tremendous support. I think you'll be amazed the first night that a game is hosted. If hopefully, cross our fingers, fans can go. I mean, they sell that place out. It's a raucous crowd, and the players, I think, really compete knowing that the support here in Springfield is behind them. So welcome to the team.
I appreciate it. I'm excited to get safely started for sure. Thank you, guys.
There you have it. The newest member on Jeremy Law's staff, Cliff Cook from the Missouri State Ice Bears on JOCK 98.7 FM.